Let us begin. Welcome, 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 welcome. I am so happy to see all of you here today. My name is Reverend Kevin Ewing, Rev Kev, if you know me. I am proud to be the new chair of the board for the International Festival of Arts and Ideas. That and $5, I can get a cup of coffee at Starbucks. I am so happy to be here with you all today to celebrate the strength and vision of people who fight for change and make things happen in their local communities around the world. The International Festival of Arts and Ideas was founded more than 25 years ago by three visionary and determined community leaders who believed our cities could be better if we came together to make an international performing arts festival. These three women are Ann Calabrese, Roz Meyer, who's here today and wanted to come but couldn't make it, and Jean Hanley, whose memory we honor today with this event. Now, most of you should know this, but in case you don't, the festival is more than entertainment. It is a commitment to bringing people together across all kinds of boundaries, all of these ways we divide to separate ourselves: neighborhoods, social, cultural, gender, and economic. Thank you for joining us today. Your presence shows that you also share these values and are committed to being a member of our shared community. Now, please, join me in welcoming my friend, my brother, Babalawo Anru Halfkinney, who is part of our New Haven community. He is also featured in Leah Penniman's new book, Black Earth Wisdom. Take it, my brother.
Thank you, sir. Greetings, everyone. So I'd like to ask you all just to close your eyes for a moment and really feel yourself here in this room. Feel your feet pressed against the floor, your body against this chair. And we're going to start off by honoring and remembering our relationship to this land that we are on. This land as a part of this earth that we are on. And to remember our sacred relationship that we have with this land and this earth that extends not just in this moment, but in the moments to come, and has always been there in the moments before now. We come from people who knew how to live in sacred relationship to the earth. And it's important that we remember that today. And we remember that with our bodies, our hearts, our minds, and our spirits. And in addition to that, we remember and we honor our relationship with the first people who were in that sacred relationship with this land here, Quinnipiac, Paugussett, in this land, in this place, as well as all the indigenous peoples as a part of this land, and the indigenous peoples as a part of this planet who we honor. For without them, we would not be here. And so we have some choices to be in sacred relationship with them, with their memory, but also with their lived and current struggles for liberation. We are a part of that. We can choose to be a part of that, even as we are a part of the first pains and oppressions that were done to them on this land. And we also remember and we welcome into this space our own ancestors, our own people, for without them we would not, again, be here today on this land. And so we honor the earth, we honor these First Nations people, we honor our ancestors. And in my tradition, the Yoruba tradition, we honor them with a libation and we use water, this sacred, this strong, this powerful, cooling, gentle substance that is also who we are. Iba ba ba tofu wa she o. Iba ba ba tofu wa she. Iba ba ba tofu wa she o. Iba ba ba tofu wa she ashe te fuan lan lo yo. Iba ba ba tofu wa she. Iba ye tofu wa she o. Iba ye tofu wa she. Iba ye tofu ashe o. Iba ye tofu ashe te fuan lan lo yo. Iba ye tofu ashe. Iba gungun tofu ashe o. Iba gungun tofu ashe. Iba gungun tofu ashe o. Iba gungun tofu ashe te fuan lan lo yo. Iba gungun tofu ashe. Iba gungun tofu ashe. Iba gungun tofu ashe. Let us remember the joy and the love and the blessings that our people have left for us. And let us use those, access those, express those blessings that they have left for us. Ashe, ashe, ashe.
So I'm super tall. Can you hear me? Yes. All right. Hi, everybody. How you doing? You good? You good? Okay. For those who don't know me, my name is Malachi Eason. I am the... Okay, I got a screen. I love screens. My name is Malachi Eason. I'm the Director of Programming and Community Impact for the International Festival of Arts and Ideas, and I'm super excited to be with y'all tonight, as always. Give yourself a round of applause for being here. I love class, love talking. So I get to introduce the artist for the night. We have Bernice. She is a Connecticut-based Haitian neo-soul musician and dancer that spreads her talents across the borders. At the age of 18, she was featured on season 9 of The Voice, which is a great thing, and she's from Connecticut. Yes, I get it, okay. As a recording artist and songwriter, her focus is on R&B with a jazz infusion. She sang the national anthem for the WNBA and NAACP. Okay. She's most known for her live performances around the tri-state area, one being her own brand, Afro Kreyol, with everyone under the Afro diaspora umbrella, is celebrated throughout the arts and through music. And one thing I want to make sure that I leave you with today is that she doesn't only just sing. It's not just her talent through her voice. She performs with her body. She performs with her body language, with her feet, with her head movements. Every time I go see her in concert, it's like a whole experience. And I wanted to make sure she had the opportunity to share that with y'all tonight. And something that she lives by is a model that she always performs with. She says it either in the beginning of her performances or at the end of her performances. And that motto is, music is a universal language that heals. And it definitely reminds me of the things that we're doing here in the festival, which is about, we want to make sure that people are starting to rise. We're living that life, we're living that theme this year. And so I want y'all to help me welcome this wonderful artist to our stage. Put your hands together for the wonderful Connecticut's own Bernice.
You're broken down and tired of living life on a merry-go-round, and you can't help the fighter, but I see it in you so we can walk it out and move mountains. We can walk it out, move mountains, and I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day, and I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid, I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. And we'll rise up high like the waves. It will rise up in spite of the aches. We'll rise up and we'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, the silence isn't quiet, oh, and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe, yeah, and you know you feel like dying, but I promise we'll take the world to its feet and move mountains, oh, and move mountains. 'Cause I'll rise up, I'll rise like the waves. See, I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid, I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. See, I'll rise up high like the waves, and I'll rise up in spite of the ache. Said for you and you and you and you, for you and you and you. For you, 'cause you see, everywhere I'm turning, nothing seems complete, 'cause I stand up and I'm searching for the better part of me. See, I hang my head in sorrow, state of humanity. I wear it on my shoulders, 'cause I need to find that strength in me. 'Cause I am a superwoman. Yes, I am. Said yes, you are. Yeah. Even when I'm a mess, I still put on a vest with an S on my chest. Oh yes, I'm a superwoman. Yes, I am. 'Cause for all the mothers fighting for better days to come, and all my women sitting here trying to come home before the sun, and all my people said we're coming together. Yes, I can. Oh, yes, you can. 'Cause I am a superwoman. Yes, I am. Come on, y'all. Yes, she That's right. Even when I'm a mess, I still put on a vest with an S on my chest. Oh yes, I'm a superwoman. Yes, I am. Well, let me tell you now, I am a superwoman. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Leah, even when you're a mess, you'll still put on a vest with the nest on your chest. Yes, you're a superwoman. Yes, you are. Ooh. Yes, you are. Thank you.
I think that deserves another round of applause. I got up here and forgot what I was supposed to be doing. I'm looking at all these women with super big S's on their vest. I'm like, ooh, we about to make something happen. All right. So I have the honor of introducing another one of my brothers, our host this evening our gracious host in this lovely facility. I'd like to welcome to the stage right now, Eric Clemens, the Chief Executive Officer of Concord.
Good evening. As Rev Kev said, I'm the founding CEO here of Concorp, as well as the CEO of ConCat, our sister organization. And I'm going to be really brief because I want our ED of this place to talk about what we do here. And I was supposed to kind of talk about the people who are here and the organizations, but it occurred to me when I came in here that everybody knows each other. So y'all know who's here, right? All right. But what I want to do, because I think it should be said, I want to thank you, Shelley, Brother Malachi, and the board of directors of the festival, you two especially, because it is my opinion that black and brown people do no longer have to go to the green to be in relationship with the festival anymore. That you, Shelley, especially, have created spaces for folks to be heard and to be seen. And you, in my opinion, are a real freedom fighter. I mean that. And I say that because it's been my experience that most people say they're a freedom fighter, especially nowadays, till it's time to fight, right? So I just wanted to say thank you for coming to the people as opposed to people always having to come to you. Thank you so much. Now I want to introduce our executive director of this place, the lab at Concorp, Aya Beckel Swanson.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you. I'll say it again. Good evening, everybody. Yeah, how y'all feeling? It is such a pleasure to have all of you here. It is such a pleasure to have the International Festival of Arts and Ideas in this space. I want to share with you a little bit about what we do. We are a business incubator, and specifically we focus on minority-owned businesses because we feel very strongly that we must support black entrepreneurship in order to alleviate black poverty. So that is why we are here. That's why we are in this space. That's why we do the work that we do. And we work with numerous black small businesses. We have 11 businesses in this space that have, within 6 months of moving in, have gone from solopreneurs to employers that are making a huge difference in this community. And that's why Eric talks about the fact that you are here in this space means so much, because we're in this neighborhood for a reason. This neighborhood needs this support. This neighborhood needs this growth. And it's meaningful to see all of you here and to have the festival here where we are and where we work to support Black and brown businesses. So thank you so much. If after this you would like to have a tour, I will be here because I'd love to show you what we do. But please know that it is a joy to see this space filled with this energy. It's a blessing. And congratulations to Leah. Congrats. Thank you.
No matter how international we get, Arts and Ideas' home lies within our community. We are firmly rooted and based in New Haven, Connecticut. You can see our branches spreading all throughout the city, but our roots dig deep throughout the state and throughout the world. So we wouldn't be able to do this kind of work without the support from our local city officials, from our state officials, and every once in a while, the federal government kicks in a little bit too. It's them with their efforts that help us to sustain the programs that we offer. So we are so happy to have here in our midst, first I must acknowledge our former governor, Governor Malloy is here. Very happy to see you. Stand up and take a bow. We're not going to let you talk, but we'll let you wave. Thank you so much for being here. And now, as soon as my iPad stops acting silly, it is my pleasure to introduce. Now, see, we are technically a few feet outside of New Haven and in Hamden. Y'all heard of Hamden, right? That's where you are. It's a wonderful town. It's a beautiful town. Lots of cool stuff here. Check it out. We're very happy to have, and I will move this on, the mayor of Hamden, Ms. Lauren Garrett, who will come say a few words.
Good evening. You're in Hamden. So we're really happy to have Concorp in Hamden. It really has brought some vibrancy to this neighborhood, which is sorely needed. There is a building that is directly behind you, and it is filled with broken windows. And my goal is to get that taken down. We're going to take down that building, and I want to build an arts and cultural center in its place. We have a vision too, and it's to bring community back into this community. So as you are around this neighborhood and looking around Hamden, please see what we are trying to do, and please see the need that we have and recognize it so that we can grow our community. So I'm really grateful for Concorp, because they too have a vision of bringing more community and more business owners into Hamden. And I'm really happy for the Arts and Ideas and all the work that they do, and all of the awardees and the visionaries and the young people that are getting involved in the arts, because where would we be without more young people getting involved in volunteering, arts, getting involved in politics, being the change makers. So congratulations, and thank you for inviting me.
Good evening, everyone. It is great to see all of you. It reminds me of last June with all of the Arts and Ideas events. And I'm glad that we are all able to meet tonight to greet each other in person. So I'd like to start out with Jean Hadley. Jean Hadley. My name is Mike Twitty. I'm proud to serve on the board, International Festival of Ideas. But Jean Hadley, for those of you that don't know her, was an extraordinary leader and worked tirelessly, blazing the path for women in the business world, and gave selflessly to her community right here in New Haven. Her legacy is alive in the Jean Hadley Fund, which supports important new initiatives at our festival. Jean was interested in not only the performance, but their connection to our community and the world around us. Our visionary leadership honorees have been selected with these values in mind. This season, the fund is supporting Heidi Latsky Dance. We're about to see a video now with Jean Hadley.
The Visionary Leadership Award was established in 2010 and named for Jean Handley, one of the festival's co-founders. I came to the festival indirectly because of Jean, and as the current curator of Ideas program, I always have that thought in the back of my head. What would Jean say?
She was a dreamer. She believed passionately that the work she was doing in the Ideas program could bring together the right people that could change the city and the nation. I think that's actually true of all three of the founders, that they're sometimes characterized individually as one is a dreamer, one is a leader in the community, and one is when actually all three of them were all three of those things and needed to be. It's sort of the definition of being visionary, I think. So the Jean Handley Fund supports projects each year that Jean would have felt passionate about and would have loved.
Thank you for being here today and supporting the work that Jean would have loved seeing come alive on our stages.
Let's thank Jean. So, I now have the immense pleasure and blessing of introducing this year's honoree, which I have been personally waiting to meet for at least 2.5 years now, to hear her story, applaud her commitment to food justice, and to hear all about Soul Fire Farm. And it's finally happening tonight. Thank you for coming. Leah Penniman is a visionary leader. Leah Penniman is a mother. Leah Penniman is a farmer, a soil nerd. She has served as a high school biology and environmental science teacher for 17 years. But she still has the time to be a published author. And I'm sure some of her books are right outside, so be sure to purchase one or pick one up at your local bookstore. In 2006, Leah purchased 72 acres of land in Grafton, New York, to co-found Soul Fire Farm. The farm officially opened in 2010. The name Soul Fire was taken by an artist named Lee Scratch Perry, and the song originally focused on a farm share for low-income people. And as Soul Fire Farm has grown with its mission to end racism and injustice in the food system, also by reclaiming the inherent right and ancestral connection to the land, as well as to have agency in the food system as Black and brown people. Leah is part of a team that facilitates powerful food sovereignty programs, including farmer trainings for Black and brown people, a Latinx farmer immersion, which is a 50-hour program to train beginner farmers, a subsidized farm food distribution program for communities living under food apartheid, and domestic as well as international organizing towards equity in the food systems. Leah holds a degree from Clark University and is a member of clergy in West African indigenous Orisa tradition. She has trained at Many Hands Organic Farm, Farm School Mass, and internationally with farmers in Ghana, Haiti, and Mexico. The work of Leah and Soul Fire Farm has been recognized by the Soros Racial Justice Fellowship, Fulbright Program, Pritzker Environmental Genius Award, Grist 50, and the James Beard Leadership Award, among others. So as you can see, we have an amazing human in the house tonight, right? Her work is an inspiration to so many people. Let's look at a little video from Leah.
Leah inspires me most because of her courage in connecting things that have been purposely separated. The ideas of the land, of food, of race and equity and gender and economic development and a spiritual side, and how that all works and fits together, and how so much has been lost. She has been able to speak up and say, no, this is not just the past. This is our future.
My name is Leah Penniman, and I'm the founding co-director at Soulfire Farm in Grafton, New York. Soulfire Farm is a Black Indigenous-led community farm that's dedicated to ending racism in the food system and training up the next generation of activist farmers. Between 1% and 2% of farms are Black-owned, which is down from a peak of 14% of Black-owned farms in 1910. And this is not because Black folks don't want to farm. This is because of a whole legacy of discrimination, of institutional racism.
I grew up going every summer down in South Carolina to my grandmother's farm. My sister, myself, my cousins down in South Carolina, 2-acre farm, learned how to pick string beans, and didn't really like it as a child. But when I look back on it, I think now I have I love it. Getting into the earth, getting your hands in the soil, growing your own food, feeding your family from something that you planted as a seed, I think is very rewarding.
There are 8 of us working here on the farm. We have an amazing team. We have a number of day-long programs and week-long camps for youth who are interested in farming, and a whole lot of community days and workshops on particular skills. It's really whatever our community is asking us for, we do our best to provide. Our most popular is the week-long BIPOC Fire, stands for Black Indigenous People of Color Farming in Relationship with Earth. We have folks coming from 37 states and 3 countries this year, Spanish and English speakers, young and old. And we spend a week together doing hands-on-the-land training. We have a number of courses on business management, marketing, as well as crop planning.
Congratulations, Leah. I don't know of anyone else right now who is more deserving of this honor.
Thank you for this lifetime of work that you've been doing. It's an area that has not been addressed for quite some time.
We are just so honored for you to be here with us in New Haven. We are dedicated to changing the food system and want to learn from you and all that you do to continue breaking barriers and creating more justice and equity in our community.
Let me just say this one thing. I was 10 years old, going to South Carolina in June. My parents had shipped us off on a Greyhound bus. We get there, it's 95 degrees. We have to go outside at 6 a.m. We have to work this farm, work these vegetables. And so at the time, it was sort of tough for a 10-year-old to have to wake up at 6 a.m. on summertime. Summer, just it's crazy. But looking back on it, I love that I had that time. I love that I had the time to learn the things that I did learn. And to this day, I continue to work in my own personal gardens and friends' gardens. I try to get some friends that have any amount of land. Plant some vegetables, plant some tomatoes, easy things to grow. So I'm glad that I did have that experience. Now, Let's give a hearty and bountiful applause as we welcome to the stage Connecticut Public's Lucy Nalpathanchil and our Visionary Award Leadership honoree Leah Penniman. I did practice at home.
There's always that moment when people attempt to say my last name. That's a little cringy, but it was very close, so thank you for that introduction. It's so wonderful to be here tonight with all of you. I'm Lucy Nalpathanchil, and I'm with Connecticut Public, radio, TV, and my bosses like me to emphasize the digital platforms as well, so you heard it here first. And I'm so honored to be able to take this time to speak to such a visionary like Leah Penniman. And thank you to the International Festival of Arts and Ideas for giving me the opportunity to be in this space with you. So I'd love for us to applaud Leah one more time because she deserves it.
Thanks, you all. I'm deeply honored. You have my heart fluttering. It's very wonderful to be here with you. Thank you.
So you feel the love.
I feel the love.
What else are you feeling right now?
I thought we were doing an interview, not therapy. Okay. Well, it all started. No. I actually feel deeply inspired by this community. It was wonderful. We had a lunch with some select community leaders and farmers, and to see the immense heart and talent that is going into creating a just food system in this community was deeply inspiring, and I wish I could just stay and be part of that amazing momentum. So wonderful to be among all of you.
Well, I'm sure they'll welcome you back as many times as you'd like, Leah, to Connecticut. This is not your first time in our state because we're in Hamden, very close to us, New Haven. You have a connection to Common Ground High School. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Shout out to Common Ground. So I was honored. I was trying to remember the year. I think it was 2016 that you all had me as the environmental leader in residence, and I had an opportunity to work on environmental, food justice, and racial justice issues with students and faculty there. It was wonderful. And I remember after each day, I would go up to West Rock to say prayers and blessings for the whole city, and really good to be back with you all.
So our conversation tonight is unscripted, but I have read both of your books, and I have some notes in front of me, so I'll occasionally be looking down, Leah, not to stress you out. But when we were getting the introduction to you and your work, the term that really stood out to me, besides Black Kreyol farmer and mother, was soil nerd. What does that mean exactly, and when did you fully embrace the nerdiness of being a soil nerd?
So I think I gave myself that nickname in a somewhat half facetious manner. I mean, obviously I love soil, but last year is when I think the soil nerd identity fully cemented. So I'll tell you a little story. There's a wonderful Black farmer and soil scientist named Tiffany Lachey, who was a guest facilitator for our immersion program. And she brought with her this really cool soil coring device. Essentially, you turn it into the soil and you pull out these long cylinders. And you do one after the next until you have many feet. And you can read the soil the way a geologist would read, the layers of rock. So she's much more deft at this than me, obviously. And so she was going, okay, well here, thousands of years ago, this is where the Mohican people, who are the native folks of our farm, where they were burning the forest to manage for blueberry and for deer and turkey. And then if you go back up here, okay, now this is the 1820 sheep craze, where there was millions of sheep in upstate New York. And she goes through history reading these layers and gets to the past 10 years and says, and this black soil is what you created, this topsoil. Because when we bought that land in 2006, it was completely eroded and degraded. The topsoil had washed away. It was subsoil. So you try to stick a shovel in it, and you just get that clank and reverberation. So through Afro-Indigenous farming practices, no-till, raised beds, heavy mulches, perennial polycultures, livestock grazing. We're able to actually build organic matter. And it brought me to tears. I mean, it's a foot of topsoil. If anyone knows, geology only makes an inch every 1,000 years, right? And so to think that humans can have a positive and beneficial relationship with land that is recorded in the geological record forever, like, that's pretty cool.
We had an opportunity to talk briefly before tonight, and you were actually pretty humble in terms of getting this honor to be named the visionary leader, the 13th annual one. And you were really clear that it isn't just about you, it's about your team. And I thought, that is the sign of a true leader, when you talk about the people that you work with, that are supporting you, that make up Soul Fire Farm. Can you tell us a little bit about them?
Absolutely, and I appreciate you uplifting that, because, we're in a very individualistic Western society, and so we have the misnomer that, Martin Luther King is the civil rights movement, or Vandana Shiva is ecofeminism. But of course, it's all of us, it's a we. Both within Soulfire, there's now 15 of us on the team, half who work on or near the land, with our education programs. So our wonderful farm team, Maya and Brooke and Hannah. And then we have a number of people who are doing our regional national organizing. So Ife and Susuyu and Clara are showing up for Heal Food Alliance and National Black Food and Justice Alliance. But even beyond, Soulfire gets pedestalized. And I mean, I obviously think we're beautiful, committed human beings, and I'm very proud of our work. But there are so many organizations, and, shout out to Mama Tegan for putting an insert into your pamphlet uplifting, some of these local and regional black and brown, many of them black and brown led organizations that are doing work. And so we have to remember that it's an ecosystem that moves us all forward. And it's wonderful to give folks their roses. There's nothing wrong with that. But remembering that, I'm here because Ife is holding down payroll and Claire is holding down feeding the chickens. We all have to be in it together.
Right. And farming is hard work.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
I was telling Leah that I like to garden, and occasionally I try to extend my vegetable garden. And literally there is a pest for everything. I'm going to grow squash. There's the squash beetle. Oh, I'm going to try cukes. There's a cuke beetle. I love roses. Here's the Japanese beetle. And so there's just the amount of challenges to farm and to have a system and a support network to make it be successful. And that is few and far between when we talk to Black and Indigenous people who want to farm and go back to the land. You said in your book, Farming While Black, I never imagined I would be a farmer. So what called you to the land?
I thought we were going to talk about pest management, but we'll come back to that.
I'll get tips after.
I have something to say about those
tips
beetles. So, well, the land called me first. So I grew up mostly rural. I grew up in a small town called Ashburnham, Massachusetts, north of Worcester. And it was an almost all-white town. The racialized bullying in my school system was brutal. Like, absolutely brutal. And so my siblings and I didn't spend a lot of time doing peer activities. We spent a lot of time in the woods. And there's no substitute for the intimacy of daily connection. So we fell in love, with the wood sorrel and the blueberries and the rainbow trout and the sunsets. And I was 6 or 7 years old when I learned that oversimplified, but the earth was in trouble. I learned about climate change and species devastation, and it was the little alarm bells going off in my heart, and my sister and I formed a club called the Junior Ecologist Kids Club, and we go around on our blue Huffy bicycles on like pollution patrol, picking up trash. And my sister's much braver than I am, so she would actually put her body in front of the loggers and tell them they couldn't cut down trees. I watched from the road. It's like, you're awesome. So that love was there. And when I, became a teenager, needed to get a job, earn money, there was a flyer at church that my mom found for a farming job at the Food Project in Boston. So they hired me, and I fell in love, absolutely fell in love. Being a human is hard, but being a teenager is extra hard and extra confusing. And the elegant simplicity of putting a seed in the ground, harvesting food, providing it to people who need it, no one can say that's not necessary. And so that became a way that I started to build a sense of worth, was through farming. So I never looked. Every summer, that was my summer job. I worked at farms all across Massachusetts, New York, and, we'll get to the Soul Fire origin story at some point, but there was never a doubt that I belonged to the soil.
And you became committed to food justice. And so you and your partner decided, let's try to have a farm to help a community cut off from healthy food in the Albany area. That's a big undertaking. And so tell us a little bit about that.
Thank goodness for the naivete of early 20s. Like, we can do we're going to build our own house. We're going to start a farm, right? So I told this story at lunch, but in brief, my spouse Jonah and I were living in the south end of Albany with our then very young children. Nashima was 2 and Emmett was 2 weeks when we moved there. And that's a neighborhood under food apartheid. Food apartheid is a more accurate term, in my view, than a food desert for a zip code that has a scarcity of grocery stores and high poverty rates. So it's really easy to get snacks at the bodega or to get McDonald's or other fast food, but very challenging to get our nourishing, whole ancestral foods that help prevent diabetes and kidney failure and heart disease. So, even with our college degrees and our high commitment to eating fresh food, there was no grocery store, there was no farmer's market, there was the community garden plots were all taken. So I felt a little desperation to find vegetables to feed my children. We didn't have a car at that time, so it was a 2.2-mile walk to the nearest drop-off for an organic farm, CSA. Very expensive, and that was the only way. So when our neighbors who were similarly yearning for, tomatoes and beets, and it's like a daikon, this is amazing. They started teasing us, when are you going to start a farm for the people? And we'd always had that in the back of our minds as some eventuality, but that put a fire under us. And we purchased, at the time, 72 acres of really degraded, very affordable mountain land that needed a lot of work. And we spent the next 4 years hand digging a foundation, building a home out of mud and straw and local timbers, and restoring the soil and dragging our small toddlers along, for the ride. And we opened the farm in 2010 with a doorstep delivery program of low-cost, sliding scale, affordable vegetables right to the doorsteps of our neighbors. So that was our first program, and it's our longest-running program, our Solidarity Shares. Yeah. Congratulations.
What kept you going? Was it that you felt that the community was depending on you and your spouse, to help?
Oh, honestly, we're both terribly stubborn and ambitious. We probably should have stopped, but we would never do that. No, it is very important and meaningful to know that our work is making a difference. We ask people at the end of every season to give us some feedback on the Solidarity Shares. And I remember that first year someone saying, I run out of EBT by day 10 of the month, and if it wasn't for these vegetables, we'd be eating boiled pasta. That's what we would be living on. And that type of feedback again and again. In the pandemic, we actually were, right before the pandemic hit, we were thinking about phasing down our Solidarity Share program in favor of some other programs, and the community said, we need you to eat. We rely on you to eat. And so there's no way to say no to that imperative.
Part of your work at Soulfire Farm is to encourage and give skills and training to people of color who have been left out of our food system in terms of the support that the USDA, the federal government, provides to farmers. And I wanted you to talk about that legacy and how you're trying to correct it.
Absolutely. So one of the dirty secrets of the origin of this nation is that it's built on stolen land and exploited labor. And unfortunately, those two strands in the DNA of this country have never been rectified. Our food system, originally relied on chattel slavery, on the 16 million people kidnapped from their homelands. But even after 1865, with their purported end, with the 13th Amendment, the end of the Civil War, there was a morphing of those conditions of servitude on farms. one of the most insidious because of the loophole in the 13th Amendment, which allows people to be enslaved if they've committed a crime. If you haven't watched Ava DuVernay's 13th, please do. But, they created all these new laws on the books called Black Codes. So suddenly it was illegal to loiter. Like what we're doing. We're just sitting around, right, doing nothing. It was illegal to be a vagrant, which means not having employment or specifically a year-long contract on a plantation. It became illegal not to be upright and honest, the punishment for which was to have your children taken away so they could have an apprenticeship on the plantation. So the prisons filled with black people, not for actual crimes against society, but for these manufactured transgressions, which allowed them to then be rented back to private businesses. This was so prominent in the late 1800s that Alabama's budget was comprised 80% from leasing black people to plantations and to mines and to railroads. And then, of course, there's sharecropping, which is a debt peonage system, which results in most people being poorer at the end of the year than at the beginning. So you have diseases like pellagra and then on and on. And most recently, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, whose job it is to undergird the food system and to support farmers, has been found guilty of rampant discrimination against black people, Native people, and women. And that resulted, according to Pete Daniel and the Commission of Civil Rights, that was the leading cause of the decline of the black farmer in the second half of the 1900s. And so we had 16 million acres of land in 1910. That's almost all gone, very much because of the federal government denying loans and assistance. This could be a whole thesis. We'll certainly read Farming While Black, read Black Earth Wisdom. But the important thing is that, despite all this, folks have never given up, never given up. And one of my heroes is Ancestor Fannie Lou Hamer. And she said, if you have 400 quarts of greens and gumbo soup canned for the winter, no one can push you around or tell you what to say or do. Right? And she started Freedom Farm Co-op, where sharecroppers who'd been kicked off their land for having the audacity to register to vote came together to form a cooperative farm that was able to support their children through college and pay burial fees for their elders and provide food. And that legacy lives, right? That legacy lives through Soulfire, through Shelterwood Collective. It lives through Catatumbo Co-op. It lives through, the work of Farmer Daishan and on and on. And so I feel very proud that even though the numbers of black farmers dwindled to below 1%, that we're starting to see the slightest rise in the last census. And that is very much this rising and returning generation that's saying, the land was the scene of the crime, but she wasn't the criminal. And we're coming home.
You talk about the trauma associated with slavery and sharecropping and land being taken away. When you talk to young people of color who come to Soulfire Farm, and it might be their first time in a space like that, and they might be thinking about, the messages we give to people about what is success. Is it to work on the land? How do you approach that with them so that they have pride in their ancestors, in the practices that you are sharing with them?
That's a deep question. So I resonate with it because, we work with several hundred youth a year who come to the farm, sometimes for a day, sometimes for our week-long Liberation on Lands program. And almost universally, if some well-meaning chaperone made them come to the farm, their initial impression is like, are you all slaves? Or what's happening? And to be so many generations removed, from chattel slavery and still have that immediate association of labor on land with bondage says something very powerful about how trauma endures through generations. So, I often tell the story of this one young person who refused to get out of the van, and then only got out of the van when we all went on a tour, and this person was afraid of getting eaten by a bear.
We have those in Connecticut too. People afraid of bears.
We do have bears. They don't eat people, but we do have beautiful black bears. And so joined us, and when the young people, these are teens from Albany, were walking around the farm, it was really muddy in the spring, and they had nice sneakers that they cared about, and so decided to take off their shoes in order to protect their sneakers. And no one was paying any attention to the tour because of the squeals of delight and confusion as the mud like squelched through their toes, and the worms and the frogs hopped by. And we get back to, the circle at the end of the tour to kind of debrief. And they were saying, something really strange happened to me when I was walking on the ground. It was like this energy, like this memory of my grandmother came up through my feet, like up. And she died a long time ago, but I remember being in the garden with her and her putting insect in my hand. And I didn't think I had anything to do with this place or with land or belonged. But I do belong. And I tell that story because my belief is that the earth is a living being. The earth is a deity. And she has been yearning for, missing the laughter and footsteps of her children. So if we make a safe introduction and get out of the way, the earth is going to do her magic composting trauma into hope, healing, welcome home thing, right? And then we just get to enjoy. Like, we bring young people to the farm. I mean, we're sweet to them. We have nice curriculum, but I don't think that's it. Like, it's like they get to harvest flowers and then remember they could bring them home to their mom and like notice the beauty, or eat something that tastes fresh and good, or just actually slow down and be safe. And there is a homecoming and this sort of sense of expansion of possibility. My life doesn't just have to be dying by gun violence or ending up in prison or becoming a cog in the capitalist wheel. There's like more that I can dream into.
That's really powerful.
Yeah.
I loved hearing that story about how you're seeing firsthand their minds changing, the fact that they can see their possibility. Are there moments that you spend on the farm where you're pinching yourself, like, this is my life? I'm creating community here, that you feel joy?
So there's lots of moments that I feel joy. And also, to your point about pests, I think it's also easy to romanticize. Right? Even being close to the earth. I was talking to my friend about this. Last year was a really hard year because there was an immense drought, and there's also a number of invasive species that have been moving into our area. There's a jumping worm. We had a tent caterpillar outbreak the year before. The deer population is really out of control. And so even with, I'm going on like 27 years of farming experience, it's deeply humbling and also deeply vulnerable to be so close to the earth. It's not like I watch the headlines and see about wildfires, or I watch the headlines and see about the shrinking rainforest. Like, I look out at these beloved plants that I have invested my time and care into, and know the floodwaters are coming or that they're not, and there's this kind of earth anxiety, I think, that also goes with being a person of the earth and being so close to the earth. So it's all the things, right? I feel immense joy. I feel immense gratitude. I feel so blessed, my heart open, and I also feel like I can't sleep at night because it hasn't rained, and it's supposed to rain, and it hasn't rained, and is it going to rain, And I wouldn't trade it because it's real, right?
That leads into why you wrote the book, Black Earth Wisdom.
Yes.
Where you're talking to people of color, Black environmentalists, about what they are hearing the earth tell them, given this long history of human greed and exploitation. And so can you share some of what you learned from speaking to these people for our audience?
Oh, it's been incredible. So part of the idea for Black Earth Wisdom came, actually, the seed of it really, in the research for Farming While Black, which, among other things, tries to lift up Black agrarian genius. So many things that we as organic or regenerative farmers do that we think of as European or ahistorical actually has indigenous roots, including Black indigenous roots. So our raised beds and polycultures and composting. It's like, shout out to the women of West Africa for developing African dark earth. And there was this little tiny anecdote about Dr. George Washington Carver, who is, for folks who don't know, black scientist out of Tuskegee University, arguably the godfather of the modern organic movement. Super genius, just go down the rabbit hole. He's amazing. But Dr. Carver, when asked where did he get his ideas for his thousands of inventions and innovations, he said, every morning I go to the forest before dawn, 3 or 4 a.m., and I talk to God through the trees and flowers, because nature is God's broadcasting system through which God is trying to communicate with us every minute, every hour, and we just don't tune in. I was like, So Dr. Carver is an earth listener. Dr. Carver is one of the people who has not forgotten the languages of the sacred earth. And there are so many languages, right? The ice course, the bird song, the rings of the trees, the pH of the ocean, the exhale of the phytoplankton, the patterns of the stars. And there was a time when many of us had much more literacy, when our ancestors knew, the oak leaves are the size of squirrels' ears, and so it's time to plant corn because that means the soil's the right temperature. And now, you got to look it up on Google, what is the time? And as we've gotten further from our primary source, it's like a dangerous game of telephone where we're getting interpreted, scrambled messages from the earth that by the time they reach us, they sound like scroll on Instagram. And that's not what the earth is trying to say to us. So I got very interested in the question of who still knows how to listen and what is the earth saying. And it has been, I'm telling you, I almost ruined my computer because I was crying so much during the interview. It's just like so amazing. And one of the things the earth is saying is that the idea of separateness between humans and nature is a lie of white supremacy. Right? That we're actually all kin. We're actually all kin. And part of what we need to do is to weave ourselves back into the kin-centric ecology that is our inherent birthright. It's not that human beings are the pinnacle of evolution, somehow set apart, but we are the younger siblings of the hawks and the waterfalls and the worms. There are elder siblings, so they have something to teach us, and it's our responsibility to tune in and sit reverently at their feet and heed those messages.
Thank you, Leah, for that. And you interviewed Enru for this Black Earth Wisdom, which people can pre-order. It's not out just yet. But Enru talked about the bird song. Mm-hmm. And we were actually having this conversation with another Arts and Ideas staffer about, we're having this very, very mild winter. And, most of us are enjoying the warmer weather, but the impact of not having snow cover for our farms and for our species, and the fact that you mentioned more of these invasive species that are becoming more and more of an issue. And so there's just so many challenges. But I think it's easy also to feel disheartened. So what do we do when we get to that point, Leah?
When we get disheartened, or we don't have snow? I mean, not having snow cover is really intense. So the freeze and thaw cycles are actually what reduced our pest populations. And so it's imperative that the earth actually freezes. The freeze-thaw cycles also break up compaction. So all of the tractors and footsteps and everything that press the soil down, the heaving, right? So anyway, I'll try not to get too sciencey on y'all.
No, please do. We like it.
We're going to talk about hope.
Science and hope.
I really like science a lot.
I know.
Hope is the only option, really. It's impossible to know if we are going to win, right? It's impossible to really know. We can get to the mountaintop, but are we going to get to the promised land? But here's the thing. If we do a thought experiment, and I talk to my children about this all the time, especially my daughter Nashima, because she's a climate justice activist and indigenous rights activist who loses hope at times. I'm like, okay, so let's just imagine everyone in this room gave up hope and adopted cynicism, pessimism, and self-centeredness. Because if we're going to lose anyway, we might as well get mine while I'm here, right? So I'm going to just adopt a hedonistic, greedy approach where I gobble up as much resources as possible, compete with other people, and just try to get mine in the short term. That would obviously result in an utter disaster for the community and for the moment. But if I keep my eyes on the prize thinking, there is a future possibility of beloved community, of the world that we want to dream into, that means I'm going to keep feeding people today. I'm going to keep caring for these soil organisms today. I am going to keep putting out love and generosity and care into the community right now. And that makes the present moment livable. And it makes tomorrow's present moment livable. And if we keep building our livable moments, we'll have a livable future. But if we give up, we've actually destroyed the future and the present. And so hope is just the only rational course. So that's how I hold on to hope.
They gave us 45 minutes, and I mean, that's just not enough time to talk with you, Leah. And also, the clock stopped working, so
it's okay.
If you want to signal to me when when it's time. You had mentioned this rich Black agricultural history that people may not know. There was another person that you've talked about and written about, and that's, I believe, Dr. Booker Whatley. Many of us are familiar with CSAs. Many of us may be members of CSAs, but this was something that Dr. Whatley
we
brought
need to shout this out.
So let's talk about that.
And people really thought Dr. Booker T. Whatley didn't have all his marbles in place in the early 1900s when he was talking about this. So he had this idea. Black farmers were struggling, by the way, because black farmers, if they had any land left at all, it was very marginal. And when they tried to sell their cash crops to aggregators, they encountered discrimination and unfair pricing. So say you have a whole load of tobacco and you're trying to, sell it to a middle person. They're white, they don't like you because you're black, you're getting a lower price, or they're denying your contract. So it's very, very tough. So his idea was to drop out of that entire commodity system, and instead to focus on diversified horticulture, a minimum of 60 vegetables per farm. And his idea was city folks are probably, urbanization is picking up, city folks are probably missing the farm. So we can market this agrarian tourism, essentially. People will come to the farm and they'll harvest vegetables, and they'll actually pay the farmer for the privilege to work the fields because they have a nostalgia for the countryside, right? And we'll charge them a subscription fee to have a membership at a farm, and they can help name the animals, and then they'll have a newsletter and a monthly share. And people were like, nobody is going to pay you to come work on your farm. He's like, just trust, just trust. And now you look around, and the small organic farms, almost all of them are either pick your own, CSA, direct to consumer farmers market, any of the farm to table marketing technologies that we now celebrate as the way to keep your margin livable as a small farm came out of Whatley's, cockamamie 1930s ideas. So we can thank him for the CSA.
I love that. That sounds like a show.
Right?
I mentioned that you're a mother, and I know how it makes me feel when I've been able to raise my children to love, to garden. We have this tradition where we plant peas around St. Patty's Day, which is coming up. And we have pictures of them through the years in the garden. And I'm wondering if you can talk about what it means to you to raise your family on the land.
Oh, you're really going to make me cry now. It's the best thing ever. It's the best thing ever. I have to say, during the pandemic, fully acknowledging the devastation and tragedy that time was and is for communities here and across the globe, there was this forced togetherness, their schools closed, and I was in this anticipatory grief because Nashima was ready to go off to college, and we all keep pretty busy, and I think I hadn't really let it sink in that this would be our last summer together, and it was already booked up with all these programs and speaking engagements, and I was just like, how is this? And then, of course, March hit, and there were no programs, and there were no speaking engagements, and we were all just on the farm. And community, our phone was proverbially ringing off the hook, and our IGs and all of that, with people needing gardens, needing food, needing know-how around nutrition and producing their own food. And so our family went into the hyperdrive. And I remember stepping back at one moment, just watching Nashima and Emmett, so skilled, so caring, so big-hearted. I mean, Nashima was literally on a roof, nail gunning, like building a roof, nail gunning in and like calling down to these dudes the numbers of how long the boards were that needed to be cut with like the safety glasses and the everything. I was like, this kid can build a house. And then Emmett was, driving out to the community to install raised bed gardens for elders who needed in the community, like all by himself, and then coming back. And it's like, it's really not that your children need to grow up and do what you do, but it's so rewarding to know that they have the skills to contribute and that they find value in contributing to community. And, Nishima's, I was actually the editor of Black Earth Wisdom, and she outcompeted folks with advanced degrees for her qualifications and skill in editing that entire volume. She's just like so on point. So, of course, I'm ridiculously proud of my children. They're amazing.
Yeah. And Mama gets part of the cred, right? Congratulations.
They come through us. Yeah. They are not from us. Yes.
I don't know how much time we have left. So, 10 minutes. Okay. So, what do you want people to know about you and your work?
I want people to know that it really isn't about me or my work. I think that what happened is I finally got courageous enough to follow my ori, like my inner head, my destiny. I love public school teaching. I love my teens. I miss them so much. And one of the reasons I chose to teach in public school was that I was afraid. I grew up poor and with a number of challenges that come along with poverty, and I was never going to let that happen to my family or to me. And public school teaching does not bring in a lot of money, but it's steady and it's secure. And especially if you have math and science certifications, you are infinitely employable. And so I was riding that, and the tug kept coming of, I need to be under the open sky. I need to be directly touching the land. I need to be like with the beyond human creatures. And it was terrifying, absolutely terrifying, because like who does that? Like who quits a real job and like goes tries to start a thing? And my colleagues were trying to talk. They're like, just wait for your pension. Just wait 20 more years. It's gonna be fine. But I really believe that what we're meant to do is like the intersection of what the world needs and what makes us come alive. And you can ignore that, but you'll never be whole and you'll never get a chance to contribute fully what you could. And so, of course, I love Soulfire. I love what we do. And also each one of us has that, that pull, that calling to what is that unique thing that we have to bring, that unique mark that we get to leave behind on this world with our possibly one precious life. And so what I hope folks take away is to listen more deeply to what is that calling. Yeah.
You have such an aura about you. I just want to... Do you want to come over and we can like meet the family and I'll show you my garden. You can give me some tips.
I would love that. I will tell you, my farm mentor at Many Hands Organic Farm, it's the farm I worked at the longest. She would only hang out with people like while weeding. She's like, yeah, if you want my advice, I'll give you my advice, or if you want my time, but we are going to be in the field while we do that stuff.
Nice.
So if y'all want to hang out, you can come to our community work and learn days every other week. And we can weed and talk.
I love that. Can you walk us through a typical day when you have these, again, farmers coming from all over the country and abroad to learn, again, these practices that have been handed down? I know storytelling is a big part of your day as you walk these farmers, future farmers, through the technical expertise, but also finding the joy.
I love that you bring up storytelling. As a storyteller yourself, we were talking about this. And I think for a long time, I diminished the importance of story. Kind of like I diminished the importance of flowers. I was kind of like, the real work is growing food, and like the real work is doing this hands-on stuff, and like flowers are superfluous, and talking about things is superfluous. And then, evidence-based learning. would go into spaces and tell stories about, the history of Black disenfranchisement on land, or about the work, or about youth transforming. And then I'd hear anecdotally like, oh, someone heard that story and they gave some Black person like 100 acres of land, just like fee simple. I was like, Or someone heard that story and then they heard the call and they said, actually, you know what, I've been called to do this land work and I've been resisting and rationalizing, but I'm gonna pivot. So there's something about story that is often the first rehydration of the memory of where we're supposed to be going. And we're in a long line of griot. We're in a long line of storytellers. I'm what they call a double PK. Both my parents are preachers. My great-grandfather, William Jackson, was like a real preacher, like a Southern preacher. And so thinking about what is it to call in our ancestors to give voice to what needs to be said. And, again, by mistake, I used to teach workshops. I still teach workshops on soil science, and so there's really boring concepts like cation exchange capacity that I think are really fascinating, or mycelial networks with mycorrhizal fungi, which I think are really fascinating. But maybe not everybody. So if you tell them about it in a sciencey, linear way, right? But if you sit down and you start with a story, once upon a time, Grandmother Pine could not stop the tears from flowing because she always wanted to see the sky. And while she had mastered the art of drinking sunlight and turning it into sugar, she could not figure out how to suck the mineral juice from the rocks, and so was stunted. But her sugary tears fell down to the soft earth and caught the attention of her cousin, mycorrhizal fungi, who said, "Why are you crying, grandmother?" Right? And the story goes on. I won't tell you the whole story because we only have a few minutes, but the story goes on to talk about this collaboration that they create and the way that they pull in all the forest creatures to try to not only help Grandmother Pine, but to remediate these degraded fields. And I will tell you, there's 50-year-old people just what happens next? What happens next? Wait, tears coming down the cheeks, And my husband is funny because every time I tell a story, he still cries. I'm like, I've told you this story, what happens. I think we're wired to respond to story, and so we've woven that in, as well as ritual. There's a really powerful workshop that we do about midway through the program where we grapple with a history of oppression and resistance. And there's some really brutal, really violent history of land dispossession. I mean, you think the white supremacists were happy that Black people purchased 16 million acres of land and left the plantation and sharecropping? The lynchings, the house burnings, the, violent expulsion of whole families, 4,500 people whose names we know. Completely devastating. And how do you metabolize that, right? And the way our people have always metabolized that is through ritual and ceremony. So we actually do a whole funeral for the trauma and take time to read and process and talk about these painful events. And then we have a New Orleans style, big band funeral for the trauma. And then this whole other workshop about resistance and hope and dreaming into our future and using water to cleanse. And there is, it's so important because so many of us just haven't had a chance to grieve. We're asked to just smile and move on and forgive and it's all good and it's a level playing field and we don't need affirmative action. And that's not true. There's so much internal work and there's so much community healing work that needs to happen if we're truly going to create an equitable society.
We're almost out of time, and I wanted to circle back to what everyone in this room can do. And so there are these great resources in the program, but there's also, I believe, the Black Farmers Justice Act. Mm-hmm. And what can everyone in this room do to make sure that the mistakes and the discrimination of the past do not persist into the future? What do you want to leave people with?
Well, first of all, so my daughter Nashima, who I know I love to keep talking about, but when she was a small child, she said, "Mom, I think the food system is everything it takes to get sunshine onto our plates." It's like, yes, right? And because that journey is so long and multiplicitous, there are so many points of intervention, right? There are so many right answers for what we can do. And, a lot of times we get into a mind frame of there's sort of a more holy or more righteous way. And we try to think about social justice as these 4 wings of a butterfly. And a butterfly cannot fly without all 4. So you have the reforming of existing institutions as one, the resistance to oppressive systems, that's the get in your face protest wing. There's the building of alternatives that represent the future we want to see, and then the healing from trauma. We need all of those things. And on our website, we've got a long list of ideas, so you should check it out. But the thing in common with all of them is we need to be paying attention to centering the leadership of those most impacted by the issue. So we're talking about Black, Indigenous, people of color, farmers, consumers, food activists being at the center. And being at the center by actually giving resources and platform and power and dignity over, not doing paternalistic savior, none of that, right? It really is looking at that list of organizations, making sure that we're giving away power to those organizations. And at the policy level, the Justice for Black Farmers Act would support returning 16 million acres of land to Black people, which would be awesome. As well as addressing debt forgiveness, discrimination, training for farmers. And that bill was actually co-written by a coalition of hundreds of Black farmers across the country, and we got to participate. So definitely check it out. It just got reintroduced a couple weeks ago. Right. Check out it.
Wonderful. Thank you. It's been a pleasure to talk with you. We're all coming to your farm, so I hope you're ready.
I would love that. You're all welcome.
Leah Penniman, congratulations. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think I can speak on behalf of everyone in the room when I say thank you to Lucy and Leah for letting us be a part of this journey, of this conversation. So appreciate you both. And let me just say one quick thing, okay? I'm so glad that I had a chance to do the gardening with my grandparents. I had my garden, and now my oldest son and his family, I'm a grandfather, they're moving from the West Coast back to the East Coast. They bought a house, and there's like a little 12-foot by 12-foot area in their yard, and I can't wait to introduce my granddaughter to the garden, to the soil. So, I'd like to call Christine and Ruby Melton to the stage, please, if possible. We all love Ruby and Christine and Shannon, part of the Visionary Leadership Committee. Ruby. So it is now my immense pleasure to present Leah with the Visionary Leadership Award. We like to think that this award is as unique as the one who receives it. All thanks to the family of Saul Levitt, who commissioned the piece. Christine, will you please present her?
Well, hello, everyone. It's the end of our night together in this space. My name is Shelley Kiala. I'm the Executive Director of the International Festival of Arts and Ideas. Thank you. And, I get it. I didn't know your work, Leah, until this honor was you were chosen for this honor, and you had to choose to walk into it. So thank you for choosing to walk into it. I get it. I think I got a philosophy degree tonight. I think I got a history degree tonight. I certainly learned a lot about soil. And I was really moved. I was quite moved. I know many of you were also moved. So I know we have a big a swath of folks in this room, some of whom are seventh-generation farmers. Some, right? Some of whom are seventh-generation farmers, or maybe even further back. And some of whom might just be soil curious, right? So this is a space for all of you, and we're so happy to have you here. So thank you again for joining us tonight to celebrate. I also believe in the power of we. I also believe in having a spirit of service. And if you open your program, you'll see pages of people who feel the same way. Our visionary supporters, our leadership sponsors, our institutional and organizational sponsors, the folks that purchased ads to support us being in this space without having to buy a ticket to be in this space. This is the power of we, and we're very grateful for that power, and thank you so much for sharing it with us tonight. I also want to thank the staff of the International Festival of Arts and Ideas who have worked so hard to bring this to life. Thank you so much. The board of the International Festival of Arts and Ideas. You saw many of them actually on stage. They're wonderful. They're wonderful. I want to give another shout out to the Visionary Leadership Committee who made this selection and volunteered their time. And in addition, I want to acknowledge Tegan Engel, who just gave and gave and gave and gave to make today what it was, from the beginning of the day till the end of the day, and continues to plant seeds and fertilize them throughout her time in New Haven. So thank you, Tegan. So I'm going to name just a few of the organizations so that we don't miss any of them, but you don't have to clap after every single one. I just want to speak their names into this space. Concorp, we're grateful to have Concorp. I live a half a mile from here, actually, so I'm really grateful that Concorp is here. This is my neighborhood. Bloom, thank you for this beautiful vegetation that's on stage. I have a feeling these are real tomatoes, so if someone wants to eat some when we're done, you're welcome to do so. Orchid Cafe, who fed people today during a lunch. Jones Family Farm, who has supported us by providing wine later tonight, by providing some financial assistance. New Alliance Foundation, Markham LLP, Community Foundation for Greater New Haven, Yale New Haven Health System. Lots of we's in the room, right? So many of us. Yale China, Gateway Community College, the cities of Hamden and New Haven. I was so thrilled to have the mayor here this evening. We have Long Wharf Theater in here that bought an ad. We have the Adult and Community Education of New Haven in here. Just read your program, get excited. And, it goes on and on. New Haven Bank, thank you. You make it possible. And if you're feeling compelled to give more, which you might be, if you're feeling compelled to give more than what you already gave, there is actually a page in the program where you can donate to the Jean Hanley Fund, all the proceeds from tonight. So we have a little bit of proceeds that we got thanks to all that support after we hit expenses. And there's still room to grow that support, to really bring the festival to its fullness this year, over 80% of which is free to the community. That's our commitment. So if you turn to a page with a big QR code on it, you can just scan that. If you don't know how to scan it, turn to someone next to you. They'll teach you how to do it. It's right here. And we'd love to add you to the list of people that are supporting the Jean Hanley Fund and the festival this year. And also, just a reminder that this list, these are our neighbors. So we have lots of opportunity to connect and support the people doing this work right in our community in Greater New Haven. And again, just a huge thank you to you all for sharing space with us tonight. It mattered that every single one of you came. It mattered to me to have you here, and I'm so grateful. Thank you. Have a great night, and congratulations again to Leah.